Hello and welcome to the playlist on SAP and Power Platform here on the SAP on Azure YouTube channel. Now that we have the on-premises data gateway installed, we want to leverage this and consume an SAP function module from the Power Platform. So in Power Automate, we will leverage the on-premises data gateway, look for available RFCs in the SAP system, and then execute a very simple Power Automate flow. So just to recap, we have our SAP system. We have it installed on a cloud appliance library in Azure. We have installed the SAP.NET connector. We have installed the on-premises data gateway, and we have connected the on-premises data gateway to our Power Platform in the internet, basically. So now what we want to do is we want to leverage the SAP ERP Connector to look up via the on-premises data gateway available RFCs, and then consume and call them and make them available in functionalities in the Power Platform. So let's take a look. Okay, now that we have installed our on-premises data gateway, so I can see this here on the computer in my firewall, behind my firewall basically, so being able to connect to the SAP system, and I can also see it here in the Power Platform, so you can see it's online. We are ready to do the next step. So basically what we want to do is we want to connect now to our SAP system. And the best way to figure out if everything is actually working is to quickly check via the SAP Logon. So you can see here, there's the ApplicationServer name. This is actually an internal name, an internal IP address that is being used. I can see the instance number, the SID, and obviously I can also quickly do a check and try to log on here. So I'll use the developer and the password that I've initially created, and now I can log on to the SAP system. So that's exactly now what I want to do from the Power Platform. So let me switch over here to Power Automate again, and let's try and create a very simple Power Automate flow. So I'll just do an instant cloud flow here. I'll give it a name, connect to SAP, and we'll use here a manual trigger for this step. So if I click on create, then what I can select as a next step is the ERP connector. So if I click on next step, if I search for ERP, then the SAP ERP connector shows up. Now there are a bunch of different functions available now. What I want to take a closer look is this new one, this call SAP function v2. So I'll select this specific system, and now I can provide here the system parameters. So as of now, in this specific case, I need to provide a JSON file that contains all the relevant information, like the IP address or the system name, the system number, the SID, and so on. So I have prepared this actually, and in its simplest form, it basically just has the application server host, and you can see this is this internal name. So obviously this is not accessible from outside, but since we are going to use the on-premises data gateway, we can just use this internal name, the client ID of the SAP system, and the system number. So with this actually, I just need to make sure that I have the right connections parameters selected. So in my case, I'll just add here a new connection. I'll use SAP authentication, and as the on-premises data gateway, I'll now select our on-premise data gateway CAL system. I'll provide a username, so I'll use the very same username that I also just used to log on to the SAP GUI, and I click on create. Now we are connecting our Power Automate flow via the on-premises data gateway to our SAP system. So with this, if I now search for the RFC name, it should pop up here. So let me start with a very simple RFC name. And you can see already the list of all the RFC services is built up. So if in my specific case, I'll just want to use the BAPI for one of the EPM services. And so what I'll just do is I'll just start typing. So I'll put BAPI _ EPM _ product. And you can already see that it fetches the available BAPIs. So in my case, I'll just use this get list functionality. I can just click on it, and now you can see optional parameters are fetched. In my case, the get list function doesn't have any specific parameters. So with this, I can just click on save, and we can actually run this Power Automate flow and give it a try and see if we get some data back from the SAP system. And now you can see it took like 3 seconds to execute for the very first time. And if I take a look at the information that I'm getting back from the SAP system, you can already see here I get this famous information like the product ID of the notebooks, notebook 15, and you can see a very long list of different products that is being returned from the SAP system. Now, if we look back at our overall architecture, we can now see that we have used the on-premises data gateway to connect to the SAP system, and we use the SAP ERP Connector to retrieve information from a function module. And with this, we can now put the data into use into a Power App or a Power Automate flow or something like that.